Hi, this is Rainbow Harmony, here to help you find balance and peace to live a more colorful life. And this is part one of our love seminar featuring
Hey,
John. And our topic is
love. Difficulty in relationships seems to be what most of Rainbow Harmony's clients seem to be talking about lately. So we've been working on this for kind of in the little workshop tunnel for a while. So we've had this idea of doing some webinars, two so far planned, this being the first of them. This video is mostly just going to be more like a broad topic covering so that you guys can kind of give it an idea of what it is we'll be talking about over the next couple of videos. I honestly don't really know that we have any limits set so far as to how many videos and how long each one will be or anything like that. We're mostly just trying to see how much we can really expand into this topic based on what your responses are. So feel free, obviously, to comment, provide maybe some extra guidance as to maybe topics you'd really love to hear about. And the ones we obviously hear the most about, we'll definitely be expanding on those. Some of the more rare ones, depending on the situation, we'd obviously love to get as much detail as possible to help you guys out. We're seeing a lot of big, drastic, difficult changes in people's personal relationships, romantically.
It's been
so
intense
many breakups.
lately. Yeah, it's been intense. John's been doing readings too. By the way, if you guys want to purchase a reading from John, it's a lot cheaper than my readings, only $33. That's our plug. You guys can purchase personal readings from us, promiseharmony.com/services if you have any questions. But all the purchases you guys make enable us to be able to make free content like this. So we decided we wanted to make this for you guys to answer all your questions as a way to just give back and thank you guys so much for all the support you give us. You guys paid for our food today. We ate because of you.
Yes.
You guys paid for my toilet paper. I wiped my ass because of you. I took an Uber today because of you guys. You guys seriously are hooking it up, and I'm so thankful. And so we were realizing that everybody has a lot of questions right now about love. It's been going down, breakups. People who have been together for years have been messaging me with children telling me, I think it's time to divorce my husband of 30 years. And it's just been so intense. And everybody, I notice these patterns because I'm doing readings all the time. I'm getting emails, I'm getting comments, I'm getting DMs. By the way, you can follow me on Instagram at rainbow__harmony. And I'm just getting all this feedback that it's really going down in your love lives right now. So I've been trying to do more love pick-a-card readings, but I feel like we decided to do this seminar because I realized I need to talk more about this, and John and I are constantly talking about this topic together. We've been through a lot together in our relationship, and so we decided, why not just share what we've learned with the Rainbow Harmony family. We kind of found ourselves at this path in a really weird way. Like, we've done a lot of research on relationships because we found ourselves in the middle of toxic relationships and toxic family and just toxic work environment. And it seemed like for how many years, just a couple of years there, we were researching and educating ourselves on psychology and on love and difficulties in relationships and types of relationships and personality disorders and this whole thing. And now we've kind of come out of it feeling a lot stronger, feeling a lot more educated, feeling a lot more ready to be able to share with you guys this. It's very interesting. I wasn't going to pull any cards for this, but my love deck is sitting here and it was actually turned upside down, and the pay attention to the red flags card is coming up right now, which I think is so perfect because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about red flags in relationships, difficulties in relationships, and how you can handle that and how you can overcome it. So once again, leave comments below if you would like to hear us expand on anything. We have no idea how long this seminar is going to go on for, but we're hoping that each one of these love seminar videos can be maybe an hour, 45 minutes, however long we can go, so you guys can digest some more content and we can really go into depth in some of these concepts. Because during my pick a card readings, I usually only have 10 or 15 minutes per each card, per each topic, and I feel so rushed, and it's like never enough to be able to really.
I mean, we could really. There are so many aspects of intimate relationships. It expands into personality. It expands into ego. Expands into consciousness. Expands into intimacy and self-love and mental illness and spiritual illness. So there's so many different really components and variables that go into a relationship. It's so complicated. And just as a general disclaimer, obviously, this is our personal experience.
Yeah.
We're not doctors of psychiatry or therapists in a licensed manner or anything like that. But this is what's worked for us. We've both come from very different backgrounds in terms of families and maybe even the types of jobs that we've had, me and her. But
Yeah.
we both had relationships in the past before this one where, and at least I'm speaking for myself, I contributed my fair share to the failure of the relationship.
Yeah, same here.
And so this relationship that we have, I feel in general, is probably one of the first ones where we feel we've been able to make it through
so much.
what you might consider to be the more basic elements of just getting into a good relationship and handling intimacy, handling codependency.
We both had our spiritual awakening together in this relationship.
And it's not like
it was intense.
It's not like it's been easy. It's not
No.
like we've really actually become experts at anything, because we're still learning. There's still lots and lots of stuff to learn.
And a lot of things we're talking about, we still do these things.
Yeah,
we still commit it. Like, we're not perfect.
It's just awareness.
Yeah, we're just aware. That's pretty much it. We try to be.
We know that we do this.
Yeah.
We're still working.
How do you guys think we know so much about all this? We've been through this shit. Also, another disclaimer, we're like super sweaty right now. And John needs a haircut. Yeah. And so do I. So
it's been a while.
It's been a while. And we're like sunburned.
So first, I guess first thing to really go into is the concept of romantic love versus like the broad definition of love, and how that really ties into relationships in a romantic sense. So first of all would be like conditional love versus unconditional love. We can just get into that real quick, I guess.
I'm trying to get I'm getting my cards because I know I might want to pull a couple just like for myself.
So first things first, you'll hear this around a lot, unconditional versus conditional.
Yeah.
And all that really means, in a very, very basic, I guess, definition, if we want to get defining things, conditional being a love where you set rules or stipulations or guidelines that you require this person that you're in a relationship with to be a certain way, to act a certain way,
it's usually unsaid.
to do certain things. Yeah.
It's usually unsaid. It's basically like, I'll only love you if you do this.
Yeah.
Or I won't love you when you do this.
Yeah.
Like, I will remove my love if this happens.
Nobody would outright say, like, I won't love you if X happens. They'll say something
it's
more
through
like...
their actions.
Yeah, they'll something like it's how they respond to it. Like, they may become anger or distant, bitter, they may withdraw, they may
give you
disappear.
silent treatment.
Yeah, that's all. How these behaviors come through is different, and it depends on the person that you're with. But ultimately, conditional love is just generally saying, like, I don't accept you the way that you are, I don't love you the way that you are, I need you to change into some version of that will allow me to love that instead. So basically it's...
A lot of us experience this growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you look at unconditional love, that is just, in comparison, obviously it's the opposite. You're not setting conditions, you're not setting rules, you're saying, I'm allowing you to be whoever you want to be. You can, I don't know, you can overeat, you can do drugs, you can hurt me even sometimes. I mean, that obviously you get into codependency stuff there, but ultimately unconditional love is saying complete acceptance.
I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, no matter what you do, no matter what you say to me, I will still love you exactly how you are right now, and that's unconditional.
Yeah. And sometimes, like you said, that can be codependent. So do we want to go into that right now? Or
That would be, I mean, I could just broadly go over that because it's like
Yeah.
a huge topic.
Because it's like, it's a huge topic, but let's say that like you unconditionally love someone, but they continue to disrespect you by mistreating you or abusing you, or continue to do drugs or something when you don't want them to, and like
That has more, I would say, that has more to do with.
you can
like,
love someone and not be with them,
Yeah, it has
you
more to do
know,
with,
and not
like-
put yourself in the middle of that situation.
Yeah, that has more, I feel like,
Because you love someone doesn't mean
to
that
do
you
with
yeah.
like self-love issues, like where you want to give to this person, you have lots to give to this person, and they take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And so as a result, you find yourself constantly giving and giving and giving. You're not getting enough back. You have like this one-sided relationship where you're doing all the talking, you're doing all the planning, you're doing all the gift giving and all
Yeah.
the time giving and all the affection and all the, you know what I mean? And that's like a situation where
There's a lot of flies.
this person, the person that you're in a relationship with, doesn't respond equally, or doesn't accept your love. And so at that situation, we would talk about codependency, because these are issues where you're feeling like you want to continue this relationship bad enough that you will give more than you're actually capable of. Like, well, basically, you don't give enough to yourself to love yourself. And so you're giving so much to them that you actually get into like a resentment. You get into situations where you are frustrated, you feel drained, you feel like, well, you feel kind of bitter.
I hear that a lot from
Yeah.
people, that they're giving so much to their partner and they
Yeah.
don't get anything back, and they don't know if they should leave, but they love the person.
You give them tons of chances.
Yeah.
You say, I'm doing all this work and I don't really see you pitching in. I know that you're going through these difficult times, so like maybe you come across as like completely understanding and generous with it, but they just constantly say, oh, I can't, like, I'm so sorry, this is happening. They have lots of excuses, they have lots of stories as to why they can't, reasons as to why they can't be present with you, reasons as to why they can't respond to your love or accept your love. And so that's but yeah, that's
codependency in a nutshell.
Yeah, we had, like I said, a whole huge.
We're going to
huge
talk
topic.
about that definitely in another, like more in depth in another video, because we've both been through it.
Yeah.
We've been codependent in this relationship, in past relationships, with our families, and it's like an easy thing to fall into, and it's like a whole thing. So we will talk about that soon. But yeah, there's kind of a difference between unconditional love and then codependency. There's kind of a gray area there. But there comes a point where you can unconditionally love someone but still not allow them to like cross your boundaries and hurt you. But yeah, difference between conditional love and unconditional love is really important, and to be able to like realize the relationships you're in your life, if they're unconditional or not.
Yeah, a lot of the stories I've heard and a lot of stories you've heard, it's definitely situations where, like some of them even very, very long-standing relationships. You could be in a relationship for 10 or 15 years, and you know the first couple of years are great. You have a lot of fun. There's a lot of adventure, a lot of intimacy. You guys just seem to really get each other. You guys can still go through changes and still love each other, and then something I don't know, sometimes something traumatic happens.
Yeah, like someone's
Maybe-
parent dies.
Yeah, you lose a job,
Yeah.
or you relocate.
Someone gets depressed or an illness. Yeah.
Financial issues, all that kind of stuff, and then something changes. The kind of the spirit of the relationship goes through a transformation where somebody, basically, and what this usually comes down to is somebody has changed their mind basically about something, but they aren't aware of it, or they are aware of it and they're deceiving you, and so you get into situations where the person starts becoming distant. Maybe they start spending a lot of time on other things, like maybe they're at work, maybe they're playing video games, maybe they're hanging out with their friends all the time, maybe they're even seeing somebody else.
Maybe they're just sleeping a lot.
Maybe they're just sleeping a lot. Maybe they're depressed.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. People will go through
They're
depression.
just watching TV all the time.
You get a great, sadness comes into your life. You stop realizing what it is you're supposed to be doing with your time because you know what you have to do, but you have a lot of fear about it. And that kind of resistance to your purpose can cause a depression.
Yeah.
And
Start shutting people out and opportunities out.
And so in the middle of a relationship, you'll be sitting there going like, come on, like, pull yourself up.
Yeah.
Like, and that's all about like how to deal with depression probably. But in the middle of a relationship, I feel like that has a lot to do with communication. So maybe we should talk about communication.
Yeah, communication. What I find in a lot of people's relationships and doing love readings is that people will date, and like you said, things will go well, and then they'll hit this wall where there comes a conflict, or there's something someone needs to communicate about, whether it's like they feel like they're not getting enough time with you, or not enough affection, or they feel like there needs to be a change in some way, whether it's like a physical change, like we need to change how we manage our budget, or we need to change how much time we're spending together, or we need to change where we're living, or I want to have a baby, or just whatever. And then people don't have the right communication tools, or they don't know how to communicate with their partner, or they try to communicate with their partner and then their partner freaks out and runs. So it seems for a lot of people, as soon as the relationships get real, that's as soon as the other person ditches out. And I talk to so many people that are like, why did they leave? I don't understand. And it's like usually right around 3 months in the relationship. If someone's married, it's usually a year after the marriage, or 6 months after the marriage. And I think a lot of this has to do with communication. So something I'm realizing about communication is when you sit down to talk to your significant other, you, at that point, when you realize, okay, like I need to talk about this, you've probably already been thinking about it for months and months, or weeks and weeks, or even years and years. And so by the time you sit down and talk to them about it, you're upset, you're pissed, you're freaking out, all these emotions are coming up, and then you go all over the person and just dump that on them. And then the other person gets angry and goes off on them, defensive, and then you guys start fighting, and then it's like you can't resolve it, and then it just triggers this whole thing and the distance in the relationship. One thing I'm realizing is blame, guilt. Something I'm realizing, I think we've learned together, is how to be able to confront someone in like a peaceful, harmonious way, and how to give the other person the benefit of the doubt and not to project stuff onto people. And so, for instance, if I was going to confront him about, let's say, this is actually something you've confronted me about. Let's say that you're not washing the dishes, and I'm I'm fed up about it, and I'm angry. I never wash the dishes. Sorry, I love you.
I love you.
And I'm angry about it, and I'm really pissed, and like this has been going on for years, and I'm at this point, I could confront him I could walk over and see the dishes piled up one day and just have a meltdown and go off on him and start screaming or start crying. I can lose it. Or I can take some deep breaths, just fucking do the dishes, and then like later, like I won't sit on the couch and like wait for him to come in and be all awkward and be like, he'd be like, what's wrong, babe? And I'm like, ah. I will wait until like I'm feeling good, like after I got back from the gym, or like, prayed or something, or had a good day, and then I'll be like, you know what? I've been realizing lately you haven't been doing the dishes.
Yeah.
It's been going on for this long. It's really been upsetting me. What can we do about this? What kind of compromise? Is there anything I can help you with that'll make it easier for you to be able to do the dishes?
Yeah.
Is there something I can do to make that easier for you? And what are you willing to do to help this issue?
Yeah, and
I want to help you work this out. I want us to be on a better page here.
Yeah.
And that is a better way to approach it, So once again, wait until you're in a good place. Don't make it awkward. Don't go off on the person, And if you're angry and you want to get that out, write in your journal, right? Like, today I fucking found the dishes and they were crusty and they had this on it, and just write it in your journal and get angry and like cry and like, hopefully your partner respects your privacy and doesn't read your journal. And write about it and get angry and get pissed, scream into a pillow, write a song about it. He didn't wash the dishes again. write a poem about it,
setting aside time
paint
is
an
important.
angry painting and throw paint everywhere, and then later come back to your partner and, you know, it's okay to have honest emotion and to express, like, you really hurt me, like, I'm upset, like, I really feel disrespected here. That's okay, but it's better to be able to express yourself clearly instead of screaming at the person and punishing them with your words. That's what we do. It's like we have this weird thing, we like want to punish the other person or something. It's like, we feel like if we yell at them and we go off on them and we like belittle them or talk them down, sometimes that's getting back at them. Sometimes we learn that in childhood from our toxic families, and so we need to learn how to express ourselves with kindness and with honesty and with truth, and even to laugh about it, joke about it, and be like, are you serious? You know how many dishes were in that sink? By the way, I'm so sorry I don't do the dishes.
And in a practical way, just from like, for people who...
That takes a lot of self-control, by the way. I still sometimes want to like go off on you, but
for a practical way, though, like a lot of times, and you can look at this as examples. If you were to approach somebody with some kind of an issue you have, something as simple as chores or something like that. Obviously, in relationships, you might have a lot deeper issues to talk about, and so really
that was just something simple that I could bring up, but
it could be anything, but in those situations, obviously coming to somebody with like a challenge, a lot of times for really masculine energies, what they call it, coming to a situation with a problem is what people usually, they'll bring it up, I have a problem, right? Whereas versus, you know, you can reword things, you know, sometimes so that it doesn't come, because a lot of times people will have trigger words, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of times people will think, every time they hear the word problem, they're thinking, oh no, somebody's got a problem with me.
Yeah.
But usually that's the thing, is words help to really describe your intentions, it helps to describe what you're really feeling. And so sometimes choosing the right words that are a little bit more accurate.
Like, how can we
can
solve
help.
this together?
Yeah, because
how can we solve this together?
Because coming to somebody and talking to them like, I have a problem.
It's all your fault.
You've been doing this,
yeah.
And I'm really mad that you always do this or you always do that. So using like really extreme language can generally like push that other person into defensive.
Yeah, I still use that word sometimes. I'm sorry.
Because obviously, as human beings, we may not always really feel like a completely permanent person. And I would argue that we really aren't any kind of permanent person. So saying that somebody is always doing something or never going to change or all those kinds of things, those are more like feelings. Like you feel.
Or fears.
Based on how they're behaving, you have feelings that are telling you, man, like, what if this person doesn't ever change? I would really have a lot of fears about that.
Yeah.
Like, if they didn't change, I feel like I would not be happy. And so, like, a lot of times getting into, like, going in underneath those kind of anger feelings and trying to figure out what it is about the situation that is bringing up some negative emotions for you will really help you to find the right words. Because most of the time in arguments, especially in discussions about problems in relationships, what happens is you come to the situation and you've got the wall.
Yeah.
Right? So you're coming to them and you're like, I want this thing, and I know that if I come to them softly and carefully and with caution...
You shouldn't have to walk on eggshells. It's just about being respectful and being kind.
But if you come to them like, you don't want to be walked all over, right? Maybe you're in a situation where that's how you feel they may act if you bring it up to them. And so instead of coming to them like, hey, buddy, you know?
Hey, buddy.
Right?
Just kidding.
Instead of coming to them like that, you come to them with the wall. And that is, I'm stern, I'm serious, I want this to change, I will not budge, right? But most of the time, the best way to approach conversations like that, where you're asking people to change, is from your heart space. Mm-hmm. You want to be truthful about how you feel. You want to
Yeah.
be truthful about maybe the pain that it's causing.
Yeah, you don't have to sugarcoat it. It's just about being respectful.
And be real. You want to be
Yeah.
as real, genuinely communicative as you can. When you hide what you really feel, that's how fights and arguments typically happen, is because you're hiding how you really feel.
And then it blows up one day.
You don't want to be vulnerable about how they hurt you and how it's really a sore spot for you, because you don't want them to know it's a sore spot. Because maybe you have people in your past who, when they found out what your sore spot was, they would keep poking at it and keep using it against you. And so this is old programming that you have to be aware of when you're going into discussions, bringing up challenges for your relationship to really go through. Being conscious of how you talk about it, how you approach the situation, what kind of words you use, how you're feeling before you enter into the conversation. Those are all very important, because
Bring a crystal.
bring a crystal.
That helps me, seriously. When we're having heated conversations sometimes, I will hold my crystal. It helps me.
Yeah, and like you said though, waiting until you feel like you're in a proper mental, emotional, spiritual state to actually address the situation without feeling out of control, without feeling like you're going to have a hard time really expressing your emotion without using destructive language, where at least when you start the conversation, because obviously it depends on how they respond, at least when you start the conversation, you're going into it with a little peace of mind.
Yeah.
You're going into it thinking, hopefully, you're thinking, you know what, I feel good about this. I know what to say. I know exactly how I feel in the situation. I feel calm. I'm not losing it right now. And I have this plan. Sometimes it might even help to write out what you want to say.
Yeah.
I know sometimes it might feel awkward or maybe kind of forced or weird to have like a script. But if that's what it takes to get started in the conversation.
I've done that before, not with you, but in a relationship, I've actually written out something I wanted to say to
it's
someone.
a little
and read it to
vulnerable.
them.
You might feel a little weird.
I did that
like,
before. I did that.
But if
Where
that's
I
what it
wrote
takes,
out
yeah.
what I wanted to say and I read it to him.
Yeah, and if that's what
Yeah.
it takes to make you feel confident and to make you feel a little bit less like scattered when you enter into the conversation, then do what you got to do. Communication, especially when it comes to like issues in a relationship, you have to learn how to talk peacefully. You have to learn how to give credit where it's due. You have to learn that in a relationship,
It's not about winning.
you have to actually allow the other person a chance.
Yeah.
If you want the relationship to work, and that's the key point there.
Yeah.
If you want the relationship to work, you have to actually allow them a chance to change.
Yeah.
And allowing them a
It's
chance
so
to
hot.
change.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna open that window. If it gets loud, you're gonna hear stuff. We're in the middle of a huge city, but
Go for it.
I'm like sweating so hard right now. Ugh.
Yeah, you have to actually give them the space to change. And when you come to them with a problem like, I'm unhappy with you permanently, or like you're just like really like stern and cold and distant and like.
Oh, I think I ripped my dress.
And when you come to them with that kind of energy into the conversation, it's going to make them feel like really overwhelmed with the task, so to speak, the task of changing. And so you want to be encouraging. Obviously, having the same talk over and over again after you've already been encouraging gets a little old. And that's maybe when you need to have a different kind of conversation about a different topic.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's it.
I have a question. This is actually something I hear from a lot of people. I've done a lot of readings on this. Let's talk about the scenario or the fight where one partner has asked the other partner to get a job, and the other partner won't get a job. And they continue to play video games or to gamble or to drink or to maybe just watch TV, or maybe they like try one day a week, but it's been going on for a long time. I've actually talked to a lot of people in that situation, and they'll tell me, like, we have 3 kids, like, my partner's sweet, like, we've had talks, they listen to me, they communicate, like, they tell me they're gonna try, but then they'll tell me it's been 3 years, and I'm just like, and they'll tell me, like, where they live, like, some places in the world, like, I understand that situation, because it's, like, depends on the economy in the country, but, like, there's some people I'm like, you could just Uber or something, or like you could try something like. And so, what about that situation?
I've been in that situation. I've obviously I've actually been on unemployment before, so I know what that's like. I've been unemployed before without income of any kind before, and typically when you're in a relationship and that happens, there are a lot of factors that go into it. It can be
Yeah, I guess every situation's different.
it can be their family. It can be that their family makes it difficult for them to have the confidence. It could be surroundings. It could be external issues. It could be the economy. It can be your neighbors. It can be the fact that you don't have a car. And so in those situations, me personally, I would use, a lot of times I would use, because I was having difficulty recognizing the true issue, which is usually self-esteem, self-love.
Yeah.
I was having issues taking responsibility for what the real factors in my not being able to find work were, and that is
Because I'm hearing these
selling
women.
yourself.
A lot of them are women who are with these men, and like they're starting to feel like they're getting taken advantage of. Some of them are men who are with women. Some of them are non-gender couples as well. It doesn't really matter the gender, I guess, but it's like it's hard for me to hear that story because
Yeah.
I'm like.
Well, a
That
lot of
sucks,
times,
and like you have to support this other person, and it really does. And they're staying home and they're playing video games all day, or they're gambling, or they're dissociating, or just like tinkering with their car or something like that.
well, and I feel like that really has. I mean, at the core of it, when I was going through that personally, at the core of it was the fact that I didn't know what I really wanted to do, and so when you look out at the sea of jobs, all you see is the things that you're not qualified for, the things that you don't feel emotionally
Yeah.
capable of handling, the kinds of jobs that you feel are just another dead end, or you don't have the confidence to feel like you're actually qualified to go out and get the job that you would really love
So
to
let's
have.
say I'm the one in the relationship who's like unemployed and who's been like taking advantage, and like not only taking advantage, but you feel like I'm taking advantage of you, and you keep telling me to get a job, and you've tried to help me. You've helped me put together my resume. I've gone out a couple times, but most of the time I'm just like watching Oprah and eating ice cream and chilling around, and then like we fight about it sometimes, and you tell me like we have a serious conversation and I cry and I'm like, I'm sorry, I promise, and then I try like a day later and then I stop again, and then it goes on again for months, and then we have another conversation. What would you tell me? Like, and what would you do? Like,
I feel like a lot of that, and this is just my
how would you help me? Like,
general intuitive response would be that it has a lot to do with depression. When you are avoiding the task, when you are doing anything but focusing on spending time on the actual solution, then it's basically you're caught, right? You don't want to reward yourself because you haven't done anything. You haven't got a job. But you don't want to work because you're tired and you're sad that you don't have a job. So you're like, okay, well, I don't want to get rewarded because I feel guilty having fun or enjoying myself or making my body feel good because I don't have a job, and my partner is going to make me feel guilty. Even just looking at me while I'm enjoying myself is going to make me feel guilty because I'm like, is she looking at me funny? Because I got an ice cream?
Yeah.
I don't know if I... Was that? I can't tell. I can't tell if you're judging me because I'm enjoying myself even though I haven't got a job.
Yeah.
So first things first, and this obviously it's a case-to-case situation.
Yeah.
But
This is a huge thing. Like, I get this question so much. Like,
depression
it's
is
interesting.
you always say this.
Yeah.
Depression is about deep rest.
Yeah.
So
Depressed means deep rest.
if they are avoiding the task, you have to push them towards actually resting, actually healing themselves, actually spending time being intimate with themselves, learning more about themselves.
Going out into nature.
Giving them things to do that are fun and distracting from the problem.
Yeah.
And not in an unhealthy way. Video games typically unless you really feel like their true passion and true calling and true talent lies in video games, um, video games are usually an escape. And I'm saying this from personal experience. I spend a lot of time escaping in video games because it allows you this kind of false sense of accomplishment. You spend time on stuff, you haven't actually got a job doing anything, but at the end of it, you're a level 85. And it just feels like you did something.
I eventually made him choose between video games and me.
Yeah.
Well, what'd you choose?
You didn't make me choose.
I
But I chose.
Yeah. Aw, you're so sweet.
But
he chose me.
And that's the thing is there are lots of activities and behaviors that you may tell yourself in depression are not a distraction when they are a distraction.
Yeah.
You'll tell yourself it's the only thing that's helping you feel better.
Yeah.
Even though it's and I'm not judging anybody. This all works differently for different folks.
Everything
so,
in moderation too.
It could be
you know?
It could be drugs. It could be food. It can be literally
reading books.
It could be reading books,
even if they're helpful books.
It's really about
learning things.
It's really about where that activity takes you in your head. Does it take you where you are uninspired and uncreative and in a lack mentality, where you kind of escape into this fantasy world where you're no longer really aware of your relationships with other people, where you're no longer basically when you're avoiding your depression. As soon as you start confronting your depression, as soon as you start recognizing that you're sad, recognizing that you feel lost, recognizing that you don't know what you want, that's the journey to actually discovering what you want.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Most people think, I want this, but I can't get it, so I'm just like really depressed. Chances are, it's because you either don't really want that, or you haven't actually connected the fact that you want it with the fact that you can get it.
Yeah.
And so,
like, once I realized I could manifest anything, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the only thing that's standing in the way. And I remember reading these quotes about, like, there are no obstacles, only the ones you create in your head. And, like, at first I was just like, fuck that, and, like, didn't really believe it. But then eventually, like, that hit home, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm the one who creates my obstacles. And so if I decide, you know what, there are no obstacles, then there are no obstacles, and you just keep going.
Like
that's how we ended up traveling the world. We were
Yeah.
just like, there are no obstacles. Let's just plan for it. Let's just start telling people we're gonna do this. Let's just do it. Let's just get the ticket. Let's just go. Like,
yeah. Like here's an example. All right. So like I don't know if you've ever seen Breaking Bad, that TV show. But in that TV show, there's a character, Hank. He gets shot and he loses the function of his lower legs, and so he's in a wheelchair, or he's bedridden for like a really long time. And instead of really confronting the depression, he becomes like really bitter. He kind of sticks around in his one room, and he like orders like tons and tons of rocks.
he gets like obsessed with rocks.
He gets really obsessed with rocks.
Which is cool. I love rocks.
And
I love
it's
crystals.
cool. No, not digging on rocks or anything.
But it
like
was an
that.
obsession. It's
Not
like
digging
all he did.
on rock hounds. But
That's all he
here's
did.
the key thing. His wife would come into the room and ask, and instead of being like excited and generous and loving and kind, he was antagonistic towards her. He would keep her out of the room. He wanted to be alone. He would use it as a reason to push her away with anger and bitterness about what happened to him. And so, and that's the difference. You can tell whether or not this person that you're in a relationship with, if they're just dealing with depression and it's just like for a short period of time, you've got to allow them just to experience that. And
yeah, that's the thing. You got to allow. It's hard to see your partner depressed.
Yeah.
But you have to allow that. And that's something really beautiful that we did for each other.
Yeah.
I went through a depression. He did too. It's part of the spiritual awakening process. It's called Dark Night of the Soul. You can look it up. And
you'll stop brushing your hair. You'll stop showering for days.
You'll stop cutting your hair. His hair grew like down to here.
You don't care about what food you eat. You'll pick up nasty habits.
Yeah.
You'll not want to really see as many people. You maybe even cut off friendships and use that as an excuse to say like I'm alone nobody likes me, like all kinds of stuff. And so
We're laughing because we went through this.
and so so a lot of times you have to recognize there's a point where, and you'll pass through it in time, right? So like it starts out like, crap, I lost my job, right? And then there's like a couple of days where you might work at it, right? And then you might get a couple of interviews, and then maybe you get one that you got you got called back about, and you're like, yeah, I got this, man. And you show up to the interview and you don't get it, you know what I mean? And so you get hit, right, emotionally. And then maybe you get another one and you don't get it. And maybe you get another one and you don't get it. And maybe you get 20 interviews and you're feeling great about all of them, but you don't get it. And so the depression might start to kick in, and you're starting to wonder, why am I doing this? Can I really get this? You kind of lose steam, you lose confidence, and then there's depression. And it kicks in, and and this is all case to case. It's going to take a while before the person recognizes that they're depressed.
Sometimes it takes years.
Yeah, and people will use all kinds of things to avoid recognizing where they're at. And
it's
so,
very humbling to admit, like, yeah, I'm depressed.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh yeah,
even
I
though
guess I am.
everybody goes through it at multiple times in their life, every single person on this earth will go through depression at least once in their life. Every single person. I truly believe that. Like, depression is part of the cycle of life. It's like the death cycle in your life, and all of life is a cycle. It's basically, in your life, you're either at a death or a loss, or you're in some kind of transition, or you are at a rebirth or a beginning. So all of life is a transition between death and rebirth, or you're actually in the death or the rebirth stage. So you're going to hit the death, you're going to hit the loss, it could be the job. We're just using this as like a hypothetical situation, but this can apply to many situations.
Yeah, somebody could have died.
Yeah.
And they were really close to this person that you're in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And so they're going to
It
go
could just be
through-
like a depression from moving from one stage of life to the other, like graduating from college, or maybe even getting married, because it's like that can be a really beautiful thing, but it can also be depressing because like it is like a different stage in your life and there's a lot of unknown or uncertainty. It can be like a midlife crisis where you realize, holy shit, like I'm not in my 20s anymore, and like I wish I would have done this or that or whatever. Like maybe it's an end life crisis where you're like getting really old and you're like, oh crap, like what was my life? Like, you know what I mean?
A lot of times I feel like, and you were mentioning, like, what do people do in these situations where
like what would you tell me? Like, because I said, like, I'm the person who pretend like I'm the one in the situation.
this
what would you tell me?
Honestly, I feel like this isn't
do?
just a single discussion kind of thing.
Some people do end up leaving
I feel
the
like
person.
this is more like maybe try and scratch away at something and see how they respond. I feel like this is more like a test, not a solution. This is more about providing an opportunity or providing a series of opportunities for them to expand a little bit. A lot of times with depression, this is about you realizing that you've lost something. And so you have to come to terms with the fact that you've lost something. A lot of times,
this is actually the grieving process, and the first stage is denial.
A lot of times people, if they've lost a job, they're really connected to it. It's part of their identity. They really enjoyed what it provided for them or how it made them feel. Maybe there were friendships at work that they miss. Maybe it was the ride to work that they miss.
The routine.
And or
feeling
the
like a
structure.
provider.
A lot of times structure is really important. I'm a Taurus, so and I have a lot of Capricorn, so the structure of a job was really difficult for me to let go.
I'm gonna shut the window. They're all gonna start praying.
Oh yeah.
Here they go.
So the structure can be really important and helpful for people to feel safe. So they might feel a lack of safety. And so the depression can set in, and typically what it means is they want to change, but they have a connection or an attachment to what was. And so that change has to happen one way or the other. And if they resist that change, it's going to cause pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And so you, as the other person in the situation, with an objective point of view, are going to have a hard time not telling them, like, don't you see?
Because you can see it so clearly from the outside.
It may seem really clear.
Like when I was depressed, you were like, you're depressed.
Right.
And when you're depressed, I was like, you're depressed.
And
like,
he might even
agree.
Or the
He or
same
she,
person
yeah.
might be like,
Or they.
I know that I'm depressed, but they just have a hard time.
You can't just snap out of it
finding
overnight. Yeah.
finding a connection with a love for life again.
Yeah.
They may feel like they don't really care for how stuff tastes anymore. They may have an entirely change of what they like to eat.
They might just eat pizza and have beer.
Yeah, and so the change is really like, and you've talked about this before. You like to quote Jim Carrey
Yes.
about how your depression typically comes from this rubbing, like a skin, and this irritation. The depression actually causes this kind of irritation of like this being like your old self and this being like your new self. Depression is like this rub of you knowing that something's wrong.
You're getting ready to break out of the cocoon, basically.
You knowing that this old personality or old situation or old existence is not going to work for you any longer,
Yeah.
but you aren't quite ready for it to change.
And Jim Carrey says that
Yeah.
depression is your avatar telling you that it's sick of playing the role that you're playing.
Yeah.
Telling you that it's like it wants to be your true self. It's
So-
like you're the snake getting ready to shed its skin.
So the best practical suggestions is to maybe try and have a series of conversations, and I don't mean do this all in one day.
Or every day. Give them a
Give
break.
them an opportunity to take steps in that direction. Maybe make it, it depends on how touchy they are about the topic, depends on how touchy they are about you being involved. But a key point here is there's a certain point where you're going to know that they're not interested in changing. And I think we may just have to cover that in another part of the webinar. But at a certain point, you're going to know that they're not ready to change. We'll cover that in another one, but I'm not done yet. I'm not done.
Okay, sorry. He's
but-
not done yet.
We'll cover that in another
It's
one.
on a roll.
But what I'm going to say is practical steps is you want to encourage them. If this is financial, emotional, whatever, anything, you want to provide as much encouragement and push for them to do things that are fun for them, things that are new are going to be the most helpful.
Yes.
New, absolutely never done before, scary, new things are the best
Yes.
thing
That
for
will
this.
help you with your anxiety, with your depression,
Yeah.
with PTSD.
If they
Yeah.
if they had a childhood dream, and you have a way of making it happen, and it's not that difficult for you, try it.
Yeah.
If they if they have like even loosely because they're depressed, they may not even really want to mention things that they're interested in, but try and figure out what do you feel like doing. Do you wanna try painting? Do you wanna go see a show? Do you wanna get out? Do you wanna get out of the room?
Get out of the...
Do you wanna get out of bed? Just don't judge them. Allow them to be who they are, because a lot of times depression will make you really feel resentful of other people feeling happy, because you're kind of like, why are you so happy
You're
right
like,
now?
look at all these happy people.
Yeah, exactly. You might feel it may increase your depression by the contrast of like watching other people be happy, because you're just like, fuck, I don't have that.
Yeah, I remember feeling like that.
And it just drives you deeper
I
down
remember
into it.
feeling like that.
And so you want to just calmly, slowly try to draw it out of them. Don't push them like aggressively and like, come on, let's set a schedule, and like tomorrow we're going to do all the things.
Little by little.
Just little by little.
Take them out into nature,
Try
sit
and
on
ask
a blanket,
questions, try and
have a
encourage
picnic.
them, give them the space.
Ask them, you want to take your pizza and beer to the park?
It may
You can
take
sit
a
on
couple of
blanket.
times. Yeah, get them out of the house, get them away from old memories, get them away from old places. Sometimes it might even mean relocating.
Yeah.
It could be making new friends. It could be, like I said, starting completely never done before habits are definitely going to help.
Yeah.
That's most of my advice as far as that goes.
Thank you. That was epic.
That's all I can think of.
I wanted to bring John in on this because I knew he had a lot to say. I haven't been saying very much lately, but it's because like everything he's saying is literally like what I would say. So I'm just like in awe right now.
Thank you.
It's been incredible. You're like flowing with it. So we talked about a lot of this stuff on this list. Let's talk about breaking up. Okay?
Okay.
Because there might be some people who have been in a situation like this where the person isn't changing. They've tried all the things. It might not be the job thing. That was just like a hypothetical situation, but hopefully that little talk about the job thing reminds you guys of other issues that could be happening in your relationships and kind of inspired you in a way. Let's talk about breaking up. Okay, so you get to this point where you know in your heart it's time to break up, and sometimes this is something that couples just talk about, and like through the talk you realize never mind, you don't want to do it. So it's an important thing to be able to put on the table even if you're not sure. That can betray your partner's trust, that can upset things and create a little bit of a rift for a while. But if you're really sincerely been thinking about it over and over and over again, it needs to be discussed. Because sometimes you talk about breaking up and then you realize, wait, like I didn't really want to break up, I just wanted these certain things to change. So maybe you need to bring that up to your partner. Maybe you need to consider, like, do I really want to break up with this person, or are we actually compatible? Are we actually a match, but I just need these things to change and I would like things to change. So you need to kind of distinguish that. But when you actually know, I need to leave this, this is not in alignment with me, I've gotten signs from the universe, this is like ready for me, like I guess first of all, John, how do you know it's time to break up? I guess if first of all, I'm going to say if the person's been abusing you sexually or physically,
well, yeah.
it's time to break up. If someone has even once just physically or sexually abused you, it's time to break up.
Yeah.
And that's hard and that's difficult, and I'm sorry for those of you guys, and I know there's such thing as forgiveness and they'll change and everything, but if they disrespect you once, they're probably going to do it again, and you can't get the tenderness of the relationship back after something like that happens. It's impossible to get the tenderness back that you once had after that person physically or sexually abuses you, okay? Obviously, emotional, psychological abuse. Please research signs that you're being abused: psychological abuse, sexual abuse, covert sexual abuse, physical abuse, covert physical abuse. Please research those symptoms or those phrases, pause, rewind, and write them down and look them up. If you're feeling an intuition, maybe you are being abused, and there's definitely help and support out there for you. I don't care if you have to buy a bus ticket and just go for it. If you get out of that relationship, the universe will support you. If you're a mother and you have children, or you're a father and you have children, or you're they and you have children, the universe, I promise, will support you. You just need to get out.
It's not worth staying.
It's not worth staying.
Because that's endangering your health, your safety,
Yes.
or your children's
And
safety.
your sanity.
And the longer you stay there, the more at risk you are for injury, for abuse.
Yeah.
The more risk of that being permanent.
Yeah.
Of risk of death.
And it just
Literally,
gets worse.
risk of death.
Yeah, risk of death.
In some cases. So you have to think, if you are literally fearing for your safety on a regular basis,
and you need to go, and you need to go quietly.
You've got to be gone.
You've got to make a plan, and you got to keep it secret. You got to make sure they don't find out, and you need to report it. If you're feeling called to, not everybody reports it because our judicial system is just screwed up when it comes to abuse.
Yeah, and if you don't feel
so-
like you can leave safely, then you have to start actively making plans.
Yeah, even I've
you
read
gotta start
stories
planning.
about people that have collected bottles, and
Yeah.
if you got to collect bottles, pray
And hide it in the trash can
Yeah.
around the corner
And-
from your house because he looks through everything, or she whatever.
Yeah, and you got to get out of there, and just know that you will be blessed, and the universe will help you and will send you all the extra bottles and everything you need, little by little, day by day. I believe in you. You can get out of there. It makes me want to cry because I've gotten out of abusive situations, and I had nothing but the clothes on my back, but it was like what I had to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, triggering.
But yeah. So breaking up. Let's see. So
just basically, without the abuse thing, with that aside, how do you know it's time to break up?
So I feel like there's a few signs. One thing I feel like is actually, funny enough, small details. Small details and it has to do with, I feel like,
It's so hot.
you watching them. When you watch them without them knowing that you're watching them, what are the thoughts that are coming up? When you're looking at them, I don't know, doing the normal things that they've normally done.
Do you just despise them?
And
like...
you used to think that was hot, and now you don't. Now it's disgusting. Now the thought of them doing that makes a little throw up come in your mouth. Obviously, that's because you either pity or despise them, and that's a situation where you're probably really unhappy or bitter or resentful, and that's not like that's just not like clear cut, because a lot of times maybe that's just bitterness. Maybe you're having a bad mood. Maybe you're just really upset and stressed out lately.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys.
But that's been going on for months.
Maybe you guys have been fighting about stuff, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just making you question things. See, in a long-term relationship, it's different. In a short-term relationship, you've got to already be paying attention to red flags. You've got to always be bringing them up as soon as they happen in a relationship. If this is a month into a relationship and you're thinking about breaking up with them, break up with them.
Just do it. Don't drag it out.
Yeah. If you're in a long-term relationship and this is stuff that you haven't seen before or stuff that you let slide and now it's kind of taken over.
Yeah.
These are...
It's like collecting pebbles. It's like
Yeah.
you collect a pebble and you got a pebble. All right, that's a red flag. You collect another pebble. Okay, you got a handful and you're like, all right. But once you get a bag full of those pebbles,
Yeah.
you know it's time. It's time to go.
And that has to do with conversations. If you've had a series or a long series of conversations where you have poured your heart out vulnerably, truthfully, and you have to know yourself, know if you've done that. You're the only one that will know if you've done that truthfully. If you've really put yourself all on the table there multiple times, and these things continue to build up, chances are you're in a situation where the person is probably not going to change.
Yeah, you also have to know what your deal breakers are. Like, for instance, if you really want to have children and the other person doesn't, and then you get in the relationship and you think, whatever, like, we're young and it's not going to be a thing. And then all of a sudden, you guys get older, you've been together for years, and then that person still doesn't want children. You've talked about it with them multiple times. You're not changing their mind. Like, there's a point where you need to leave and go find someone you can have children with.
And I feel like this comes down
or,
to...
Or also, like, another example, I guess, would be, like, you've asked this person to participate and come out with you and your friends, and they simply just won't. They won't support that side of your life. They don't want anything to do with your hobbies, interests, activities at all. That can be a deal breaker to some people. But basically, whatever your deal breakers are, if this person is breaking that and hasn't changed and won't change and won't budge, then you might need to break up. And you need to figure out before you go into a relationship what your deal breakers are. Don't tell the person on the first date, here's my deal breakers, but there comes a certain point in the relationship where you kind of talk about that and you figure out, like, okay, like, how are you on this topic and on this topic and on this?
Yeah, a lot of times I feel
you
like...
can embrace differences in relationships, but there are deal breakers. Like, I want to live in the city, but this person hates the city and wants to live in the country. That you might be able to compromise, but also there might be a point where that's a deal breaker for you.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely has... It's for me, it's tied... this realization I had at a certain point was... and I'd heard this from somewhere, I just can't remember where. But there was this kind of idea that in a relationship where unconditional love is present, you actually have to be willing to accept this person as they are, knowing that they may not change.
Yes.
You have to consider, if this person never were to change, would I still be okay with that?
And this is the thing, you guys, as light workers, as empaths, as sensitive people, we have this ability to be able to see straight through people to the heart of who they are. So you have to ask yourself, am I really in love with this person for who they are? Or am I in love with their potential and what I see they could be and what idea of them? Yeah. And that's been heartbreaking for me in my life, as I've realized with a lot of my exes, I am so clairvoyant, so psychic, that I saw, like, what I perceived in them, and I saw, like, their potential, but everyone has free will to take their own path. And there came this point with me and some of my exes where I realized, like, wow, like, I don't really love them. I love this idea of them, and they're not willing to change, and they're not willing to make the effort, and I have to walk away from this.
Yeah, and I feel like with unconditional love, the thing that really broke our relationship down, so that we could move past to become a lot more aware of our personal issues and how they were a distraction from our relationship, and how it was a distraction from intimacy. All of that came, I feel like, from recognizing that unconditional love usually looks like somebody just finding different ways of unfolding and allowing the other person to grow, without control, without manipulation. If you see what their true passions are in an unconditional love type relationship, you will be working actively towards making their dreams happen.
Yeah.
And those dreams will be inspiring to you. It's going to attract you to them. It's not going to be something that you're going to want to change or improve upon.
Yeah.
You're going to want them to get exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And you're going to help them make it happen. And it's not going to be difficult for you to do that.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to know that you're in a very long-term relationship, that it's somebody that is it's somebody that you're already okay with, that and I think you'll know that. I think it should be obvious.
Yeah. And it's
if
about
you're in a
following your
long-term
intuition.
relationship.
Yeah,
if you've been in it for a while,
it's
it
about
should be
following
obvious.
your intuition. And let's talk real quickly on how to break up, and then maybe we can end this one and
Yeah, I feel like breaking up probably needs a little bit more expansion. I'm glad that this is just kind of like the first video.
Yeah,
that
we're
we can
you
kind of
guys we're
summarize
gonna
stuff.
it's an hour already, and
Yeah.
we barely scratched the surface
Yeah.
of it. We're on like the first 3 points of like these like, it's crazy how much content
So
we have here.
breaking up, I guess, kind of briefly.
Well, can I say something?
No,
real
yeah,
quick?
go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. This has been like John show.
Sorry, I thought you were asking
No,
me.
it's cool, don't worry. No, I really appreciate this. I've been learning a lot from hearing you talk today, and I hope my channel like will really see like the gifts that you have, and you guys will hit him up for a reading, because he knows a lot. Like, I've learned a lot from him. Like, this is a lot of where I get it from, to be honest with you guys. It's been so inspiring to me and uplifting to me on my journey. And while you were saying that, I was just thinking about how you're right. Like, I had this flashback to you driving me to my photo shoots in LA. And like, that's true love, like right there, like helping me accomplish my dreams and helping me get my internet hooked up here when I was like freaking out. Thank you so much. Okay, how to break up. I think that you shouldn't. There's the thing, okay, if you feel like this person's gonna make a scene, breaking up with them in public is actually best. I would not suggest that to everybody, but for some of you guys, if this person's kind of toxic or abusive or just on that border, like, you need to make arrangements to get all your shit out of their place, have them meet you for right after work or something, have everything already ready to go, gone, everything settled, your half of the money and stuff if you're living with them, and do it in public and keep it simple. Do it over coffee, and then peace out and get out of there. And don't tell them where they're going. Don't tell them what you're doing. You might need to block them immediately on all of your stuff, and make sure that like they don't get back in your life. That's kind of extreme, okay? And so that's a way to do it safely, if you're worried about your safety. Some of you guys might even, if it's really unsafe, you might need to have friends. You might need to call someone who's buff. You might need to get a restraining order.
Come and sit with you.
Yeah, you might need someone to come
or be
nearby. So that's just for those of you guys who are in that crazy situation. The rest of you guys, I would say don't do out in public. If it's like kind of just, you don't do that. Like, keep it in the home space or in a private space, and allow the person. allow you guys both to be able to talk about your feelings and get it out. Because what I realized from one of my exes is like when we broke up, it was so quick and so fast, like we both didn't get closure. And so then we ended up going out to coffee a couple weeks later to get closure. And then we ended up going out again a couple weeks later. And then we hooked up again. And then we got back together. And then we broke up. And then we it was a mess. And I think it was just because I didn't know, like neither of us knew how to like actually break the fuck up. And so, like, you first of all got to be sure that it's what you want to do, and you got to be certain, and you got to know, like, there's no take backsies.
No take backsies.
No take backsies. And that sometimes there's an exception to that. You know, you might try to break up with your partner and then realize, like, actually there was just some issues we had, and we needed to work through that, or maybe one of us just wasn't feeling cared for in the relationship, and so there's that, you know. I don't think trial separations are really a good idea.
Statement breakups,
you guys don't do that. I have had friends who've done that.
Just break up.
Just break up. If you have children and you guys are considering getting a divorce, one of you moving out and kind of doing that whole trial thing can be a good idea in some situations, but I do a lot of readings for people who are like in a trial situation, or like their husband or their wife has moved out, and like every single reading I've ever done has said they're not getting back together. So you need to really commit is what I'm trying to say. If you're sure, you need to commit. And I feel like that's the hardest thing about the breakup, is there's still this chance in the back of your mind, maybe it'll work out, or maybe the other person gets that chance. So if you also need to like not tell the person like to wait for you. Like you need to be honest and say like, I don't want this, please don't contact me, or maybe we can be friends and only friends in the future, but we need to spend some time in no contact. That's very important when you break up with someone. No contact. Not just go straight from the breakup to friends, because that's when stuff gets confusing. You end up hooking up with them again. You end up dragging it out. It's on and off.
It's unclear.
It's unclear. It turns into this big mess. And so with a breakup, you just got to be sure and, be kind and tell the person how you feel. Sometimes if you know the person isn't going to change and it's not going to help them, you might not want to explain yourself fully. That's part of having boundaries. You might just say, you know what, there's this, make a couple points and leave it at that. You don't have to go off on them or put them down or make them feel like shit and like scream at them and like make it this huge thing. Some people don't know how to end relationships in a healthy way. The only way they know how to do it is just to create this big fight. And so you don't have to create that. And also, there's such thing as consciously uncoupling. Like if you are living with someone and financially you want to break up with them, but it can't, physically it's going to take a year or something. You can work through your partner through that time to kind of work through that.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
And it depends on a lot of things, and there's got to be a lot of flexibility.
I think there's a book called Consciously Uncoupling out there. You should look it up.
I feel like in those situations, it's really going to depend on how much both of you have to give towards making that work.
Yeah.
And it's going to depend on...
Usually if there's children involved, that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
So you can be friends and be on good terms, and your kids can see that you guys can still love each other and support each other, and maybe even do Christmas. But
there's a lot more
incentive
like in that situation with kids involved. There's a lot more incentive for you to actually remain kind of committed towards that common goal inside that time frame. Because a lot of times what you'll do when you have no attachments that are literally like tying you together, eventually one of you will get tired of waiting. It'll be like say somebody's say one person in a relationship makes all the money, you're the one that wants out, but you need to get more financially independent. You only make like half as much as you need, and so you have to start creating another like source of income or something.
Yeah.
Well, the other person who's making all the money might at a certain point not have enough incentive to continue supporting you, and may just change their mind.
Yeah, and then you're screwed.
Because you said something really mean to them or something.
You better be nice.
Just kidding. Well, and that's the thing is there needs to be enough friendship left over.
And you need to set some strong boundaries about like what's acceptable and what's not in that period.
And generally, exactly. You have to both really be clear. Are you okay with me seeing somebody else while we're still living together? Are you okay with me going out with other people while we're still living together. That sort of stuff, you have to really be clear about it and make sure that the other person really is getting what they want out of that situation during that time frame. Because it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, and you have to be respectful of what both people want in order to make this a mutual situation
Yeah.
where both people aren't gonna all of a sudden get a little itchy and start wanting out early, because then all of a sudden that stuff will start falling apart, and then you'll be back to the nasty breakup.
Yeah. Well, we could probably talk about breakups forever and all this stuff forever, but hopefully that has answered some of your questions. And this is, I feel like this is a really great intro to our love series. And what we want to know in the comments below is what part of this you resonated with the most. Feel free to share any of your stories. Feel free to leave any questions. Let us know what topics you want to hear about in love next. What do we have coming up?
So
we're definitely going to be talking about the difference between karmic relationships, soulmates, and twin flames. Definitely.
We have some topics here like intimacy.
Yeah.
We can get more into what unconditional love and conditional love actually looks like in a relationship, because we kind of brushed over stuff. I'd like to really get into situations. If possible.
Yeah,
so
leave situations that you're in below, and like we might even make a whole video on a certain situation, because so many of you guys are in the same situation.
And if you guys can just put up your individual situation, I'm sure we'll start to notice kind of a generalized pattern of like what you guys are looking for.
Yeah.
And we'll try to hit on the most common ones, and maybe a few of the more rare ones, depending on the situation. Let's see.
We're gonna be talking about the root chakra.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about how you're. I can't even like go into that. Like we're gonna be talking about the root chakra.
So the past, basically, the past, the childhood,
family,
memories,
stuff that affects
trauma,
patterns,
mental illness. All of those are huge factors, especially today in the U.S. There's a lot of undiagnosed, unrecognized mental illness and issues in relationships.
We're gonna be talking about love hurts programming, like people who believe like, love hurts and they just continue to manifest relationships like that.
Talking about, we're not psychologists or anything, but I do want to kind of touch on like behavior, and then also talking about like how people and personalities are like spectrums instead of just individual little components, how people like might be more like a gradient scale, that kind of stuff. Talk about how
we're gonna talk about boundaries and like how to find freedom in a relationship, also how to pace a relationship,
and in general relationships with others, not necessarily relationships with an intimate or like romantic partner. Sometimes relationships with others, just friendships, can actually help you to build good skills inside your intimate relationships. So it's important to talk about.
We're going to be talking about self-acceptance and self-love as the basis for every relationship.
Second chances, forgiveness versus codependency.
Talking about narcissists, codependence, abusive relationships, addiction in relationships, and accountability.
Blind spots.
Self-hate, self-sabotage, right versus wrong. We're gonna look into where problems typically come from in relationships.
How to stay together.
Yeah, how to stay together, and then just practical relationship advice, action steps. So obviously we have a lot to talk about. This series is probably gonna go on for a couple months.
And one last one, obviously, consciousness. From a spiritual perspective, what intimate relationships are for in your spiritual path. How they're involved, what they're for, so that you can see kind of like more of a spiritual perspective, because obviously that kind of ties all those things together.
So what do you want to hear us talk about first?
Yeah.
It's up to you guys. Peace out.